Hi, Kishore.
Great to see you here. It's exciting to sort of have you here because we use Amplitude internally, and our product team loves the product. So, and also you've worked at Dropbox, Amplitude, and other PLG companies. So it's sort of good to have you here. Excited to host you.
I'm so glad to be here with your community, Kishore. Thank you for having me.
Of course, defense. And just before we start, how is life as a CMO of a public company? Is it any different from a late stage growth company? Is there a lot of added pressure, or do you think it's the same thing at the end of the day? Let's get back to the basics.
Well, I have had a chance to start my first CMO role as part of SAP. So I had a glimpse of how to actually conduct a business within a public company, and I wouldn't change the way you behave. You just need to be a little bit more mindful about the way you craft your
Right.
messaging, the way you conduct yourself when you have that public exposure. But by all means, even when you're private pre-IPO company, you have to apply the same guiding principles. That consistency of leadership, I think, matters.
That makes sense. Awesome. Different. So, hey, one thing I want to sort of dive into pretty quickly, and it's also, I think, on everyone's mind right now is how can marketing teams support uh, customer expansion and retention, right? I think the last couple of years we're probably focused on a lot more on growth and how do we grow customers, but right now it's a lot more about expanding and retaining customers. If you can sort of help us understand some programs that you have done in the past, or even right now, that supports that motion, I would love to learn about it.
So I would put it into the context of the segments you're after, because I think segments, personas, they really matter when you're thinking about crafting strategies and programs to reach out to specific audiences, right? If you're into the enterprise segment, I think
Right.
that a great strategy that has been a proven one for a long time now is account-based marketing. I call it ABX, actually. I think it's not just a marketing prerogative. I think ABX should be considered a company go-to-market wide strategy. This is an amazing tool to actually really drive key expansions, renewals within strategic accounts. And it has the benefit of connecting the go-to-market teams together as a single motion, as a single
Right.
engine, and as a multi-threaded set of engine for those large accounts. And it's usually more ingrained when you do account-based activities. Customer first experiences are really core to those programs. So they tend to be a little bit more high touch, more bespoke,
Right.
more thought after, more targeted. So I think that's a great example. But what comes to mind to me, and only because we're doing it at Amplitude and I have an amazing team to drive this, is when you are probably a little bit more into the no touch, low touch segments, is really to double down on your in-product experience. That to me is a very key way to provide more guidance, self-service guidance, in-product experience to companies who just need to have a fast motion, fast delivery of things, and they can't afford to just have high consultancy capabilities. They just want answers really fast with full autonomy, great accessibility, and this is where the in-product enablement of their customers could really make a difference.
Yeah. On the enterprise side, you mentioned about ABX as a kind of play. Like tactically, how does it work? So is it more along the lines of, hey, let's get the like high value customers and probably some prospects into a room, do a workshop, and sort of explain them the value props of Amplitude? And is that the right approach, or is it a combination of that plus outbound and sort of expanding across teams? What's like the tactics that you would recommend, or you guys you're doing right now?
We do a variety of types of programs. I would say that it starts with really aligning with sales on the anatomy of the account itself.
Right.
And if you work with a US-based company or a broad company with multiple departments and things, your approach is going to be very different. But understanding the anatomy of the account is critical. So you need to have a lot of planning prep to understand inside signals that are going to be more likely to inform the types of touch points
Right.
that you want to drive with them, whether it's in-person touch points, conversations over workshops, phones, more bespoke activities, or if the goal is to actually expand the internal enablement around Amplitude or your product, your solution, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to do a lot more hands-on type of activities. But I really believe that it's first starts with really understanding the insights at the account level, which I think is really critical. Then you could decide and sit down with your sales team and say, okay, what are some of the top accounts that require more high touch, bespoke type of activities, and try to have some kind of elements that could be repeated across those core accounts. It could be bespoke events, initiatives, and like workshops. It could be micro experiences online, those kind of things. It could also very specific demos, environments that you create for them. There's multiple options that you can do to do it. The human touch in those high accounts is going to be really critical. And then just ensuring that you don't create noise inadvertently, right? There is marketing is an influencer usually in those accounts. It's very much led by sales.
Right.
So you have to accept that.
Right.
That's a function for them.
Right. And how does the orchestration work? As in, is there like a bi-weekly meeting that happens in Amplitude's case where you are part of the meeting, or is there someone from your team being actively involved in those discussions to see what has to be done? Like, how does a sort of cadence work?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have an incredible team driving demand generation, pipeline, revenue marketing, and we have a set of very dedicated regional and demand gen.
Regional demand gen and field marketing sort of teams.
It's a mix of both. I have an ABM expert. She's excellent, and she's just really working on the framework itself, the identification of the touch points, the accounts, and everything. And she's the one who is going to be more specifically working with sales. We have also a very specific lead routing process, right? When you work with ABM, you tend to work more directly with sales to accelerate, I would say, the velocity of the conversations with those accounts. So it's a different view of your funnel. You have to basically design it in a way that is designed for acceleration and expansion, and work very closely with the team. So yes, there is a governance model. It starts with planning, frameworking, the ABM approach, aligning the accounts, mapping by industry, by region, by segment, by territory. All right. There's a set of criteria, of course, that have to be agreed upon with the sales team. And you usually do it either through a council type of setup, a team setup. You have a process and a governance to align the funnel management and all the operational SOPs, standard operating procedures. They need to be agreed upon, right? How are you going to route leads? Are you going to in some extension, directly hand over some qualified leads straight to your sales team? Those kind of things, they need to be decided up front so that you don't get stuck into the plumbing of marketing and funnel, but you just really focus on execution and prioritizing the experience of the customer.
Right. So there's one question I want to take right now from the audience, which is actually very relevant. So somebody's asking, what are the various ways for marketing teams to intentionally spend more time with customers? Right, like because typically, in a SaaS-based company, it's the customer success and support teams that spend a lot of time with customers, and sometimes the marketing team takes a backseat after the deal gets closed. So how should teams think about like spending more time talking to customers, understanding their pain points? Like how does you do that scale, especially right at a company of size like Amplitude, for example?
I would say you need to show value to your sales team so they bring you along. It's a give. There's a there and there. It's if your sales team trust the quality of your work, they're going to be more inclined to bring you along. And as you do this, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the teams to just divide and conquer. When you have multiple touch points, multiple contacts that need nurture, that need attention, you try to bring along your sweat team, right? So the best sales people, they have a sweat team. They literally leverage everyone in the arsenal to be able to bring them along. And even though marketing can play a behind the scenes / influencer
Yeah.
or orchestrator role, sometimes you're going to bring product marketing. If you need some expertise, just make sure that you have it. If your audience is marketing, then you start bringing more experts who have an understanding, so you can craft a demo that speaks to a marketing audience. All those kind of things really make sense. We have an amazing product evangelist in our team. He is all the time involved in sales cycles, absolutely all the time, to a point where we have to put a form to submit for sales team to submit. He's so busy that now we have to literally stack rank all the requests. That's just how involved marketing can be. In fact, I really encourage marketing to be involved. That's core to our philosophy at Amplitude. That's what our chief product officer believes in. Our CEO is everybody needs to prioritize meeting with customers, not feeling shy or sometimes even uneducated. Show up, shadow the sales team, be curious, even if it means you sit at the back of the room or you listen to a recording of a call. Just be there, and it starts by wanting to be there and being okay to not be the one leading the conversation sometimes. But that's just great to just have a growth mindset. And
no, for sure, because like you said, it just becomes extremely challenging when the company grows to a particular scale, right? And the teams get siloed, and you have to be super intentional in actually making it a point to talk to, say, 5 customers every quarter, right, to understand what they're going through, etc. Because a lot of times, teams talk to customers for case studies, but after that, the touch point becomes a lot less, right? So I think that's the intentionality is important. To get the
But I'll give you some simple examples. We recently reworked on messaging. The first thing we did was to speak to customers, ask inputs. We met with our customer advisory board. We shared our ideas with them. We sought feedback. Some of the feedback was tough, but I'm so grateful we got it, right? So, and they loved it. They want to help. They want to be involved because your success is going to be their success. Many of your customers, they invest in your technology. They bet their career on the ability to implement, deploy, and hopefully drive usage. So they should be invested. So I think that the more you work with them directly, the more you check on, hey, is this message resonating with you? Is this demo really hitting home, or are we completely out of our skis on this one? Can only be beneficial. And you start creating a rapport and a relationship that is based on trust, the shared vulnerability on things that we need to improve, and it becomes a community.
Yeah. How big is your customer advisory board, defend? That's actually a good point, because I think that's a good way to actually meet with customers on a regular cadence, etc. How big is that? Yeah.
It varies. We send invitations on a regular basis when we do them, and it's usually about 15 to 20 people joining. And we talk a lot about, obviously, product roadmaps, but then sometimes we have special initiatives where we ask them for direct feedback. It
Feedback on the
messaging, it could be innovations, and that's really good to have that kind of forum and exchange.
And is it done every quarterly, or is it every monthly? What's the cadence like?
Usually it's a cadence, and we want to continue to expand it. Cabs is also an amazing opportunity, since you were asking about approaches to keep the community engaged, but also receive feedback, right? Many of us, we're working through new product introduction processes and all those things, feedback is critical, right?
Yeah.
And you want to have feedback as early as possible so that it can inform your next loop of innovations or build on planning.
No, for sure. Because we are trying to work on a narrative of sorts, even for Goalcast, right? Like a 5-year plan of sorts. Uh, I mean, the like you said, it just becomes a little hard because you don't know if what you're doing is right or wrong if you don't get the right feedback from customers at every point of time. So I think the cab is a good way to actually get that discussion sort of going. That's a great point. Awesome. So the next thing I want to sort of double click on is you've worked on both sort of companies that have very PLG led or also top down heavy, sort of different motions. And Amplitude right now has both sort of combined, right? Like the SMB sort of goes through the PLG, whereas I'm assuming that these enterprise companies also have a very sort of sales heavy motion involved. What metrics do you typically sort of track to see if the company is going in the right direction, or are these different metrics for different motions, or is it the same metrics across all these motions? What's the sort of your vision, or what's your take on that?
So I think that the first thing I would recommend is working to identify the maturity and the capability of your customers.
Okay.
Right? It really is about them. It's less about us. It's more about
Right.
meeting them where they are. If you have a company, regardless of whether this company is actually an expert, a digital native or not, or just trying to just transform, sometimes you can have a very big traditional company who's just trying to go the digital route and they're fairly new, which means that the level of maturity or even infrastructure differs. You've got to make sure that your offering, the way you interact with them, matches the stage at which they are in their own maturity when it comes to the type of offering you're offering, whether it's analytics and others. So I like to flip the approach here. It's really about the value for the customer before it becomes a value for the vendor, right?
Yeah.
If you follow the customer value and meeting them where they are in their journey and aligning with their needs, then your pricing and your route to market is actually a byproduct of that instead of being the leading mechanism for
Right.
you. You
Right.
should own your routes and those based on how your customers are going to want to interact with you. Some of them are going to want to interact online. It's faster, it's more practical for them, and they're going to want to have a high degree of autonomy and self-service model. Some of them, it's a little bit more complex. They
Right.
need more guidance and they need expertise. So sometimes they like to also work with partners, service partners, alliance
Right.
partners, because they want to have the assurance that whatever choices they make, they can
Yeah.
implement and they
Yeah.
can. So it's really about really understanding that, and it goes back again to the anatomy of the account
Right.
you're trying to attract. Is this a highly functional organization that just wants low touch, self-serve, and they can do it all, or is it a more complex organization that needs to get started? And even if it's an organization that is used to it, they may have an ecosystem that demands more hands-on support. So I think that's the way I look at it. It's the capabilities of the company, it's the maturity of the company, it's the complexity of the company you work with, and it's usually connected to their own strategic evolution, right? Around key topics, digital transformation, compliance, security, all those key topics are usually really important.
Right. But on that point, are the I'm sure it's the case, but are there different channels you use to, say, for example, attract customers who go through a PLG, whereas attract customers who go through the top-down motion? I'm assuming that SMBs are. It is. How does the channels differ? Would love to get your thoughts on that right now.
So one channel that is critical for PLG is community.
I
It
see.
doesn't mean just your own community. It's
Right.
the ability to syndicate and federate a network of communities, because people live in their communities, especially SMBs, right? You go to product people, developers, and all of it. You have to find them where they live, and they're usually in those communities. So the development of a community strategy is critical. It takes time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of content, takes a lot of
Definitely.
subject
Yeah,
matter expertise.
right.
That's a game changer for SMBs and PLG motions. When you work on the enterprise side, it's more like big conferences, trade shows, the ability to have executive business centers, for example, all those
High touch
experiences
experiences. Yeah.
that are usually more appropriate.
Right. And then where does digital play into picture? Is it across both these sort of segments? It's really not sort of segment specific, or do you think for SMBs it's a lot more digital than enterprises?
For SMBs, definitely. They
Right.
live online. It's also because for them it's a cost saving mechanism,
Right.
right? The
Right.
minute you have to interact with humans, somebody's going to make a buck out of it. It costs money to do it. So for SMBs, if their goal is to have cost savings opportunities to help them grow and ramp without, affecting their bottom line, I think they're going to go that way. But digital is pervasive; it's ubiquitous. We're
Right.
seeing some digital strategies in product experiences. It doesn't matter whether you're an SMB or an enterprise, you got to get it right.
Right.
Got to get it right. Actually, now when you think about pipeline management and funnel, the sooner you get prepaid customers or even your own customers to interact with the product, to be in the product, the more likely you are to convert them
Into a
faster, higher,
renewal.
correct, and retain them, of course.
Makes sense. There's one question from Patrick. Let me take that question. Going back to ABM, any recommendations on how to keep an ABM program going when the accounts have been selected, but the ABM specialists have been let go and the AEs are too busy selling to plug in? So it seems like a
Ah,
very big problem, but yeah. Uh,
yeah. So yeah, this is quite a common how to not drop the ball when it happens. I really believe in the power of success. So when you've seen amazing success, one thing to quickly identify is a customer success proof point and experience. So to convince basically the other sales people who are coming in that it is a winning formula for them, that you have it. So you have to document your success, your ABM use case, your ABM success, and just make sure that the other AEs who are coming just get it, understand that the sooner they actually continue the work on ABM, the faster, the sooner they can actually really win those accounts. I would highly recommend documenting the ABM success story, the accounts, doing a little bit of internal selling in
right.
partnership with the head of sales, the head of enablement, to just know that these should actually just really consider this approach upfront when they have a new set of account allocation.
Right. So basically showcasing proof points and also getting your head of sales bought in
Yeah,
to ensure that he can also evangelize that in front of his
right.
AEs to get bought
But
in. Hmm.
I will say this, and it's another. I mean, to Patrick's point, A's can be very busy selling. So how do we keep them engaged? There's two ways. It's like you keep them excited. There's proof points, but here's another thing. I really believe that pipeline should not just be a marketing-led engine. Let me explain. Um, I really believe that outbound motions are not just the prerogative of marketing. Marketing is definitely doing outbound and inbound. And when you go into an enterprise um, area, it's
Right.
ideal if marketing can contribute up to 30% of direct sourcing of your pipeline. But you've got to prospect, you've got to own it. SDRs, your BDRs, your inside sales, they've got to own it too. And what I've seen work really well is when you come to a ratio with marketing, SDRs are contributing 30% each, then sales start contributing 30% of their own sourcing of pipeline. And then you can add partners as well.
Right.
That's a great combination. So I would invite AEs to make sure that they carefully plan time each week, allocate time for prospecting. So yes, you're busy selling, but you should be also very busy prospecting, and make sure that your leadership sets you up for success so that you have an ability to do your own prospecting. And usually when you do, that's when you understand the whole mechanics of funnel conversions. You become a little bit more aware of what it truly takes to really convert pipeline along the way. And that makes you even more connected to your marketing team and your SDR team.
That makes sense. And how are you thinking about events this year? Is it going to be a combination of in-person, digital, hybrid, or are you guys scaling back on in-person? What's like the sort of
So,
what? Yeah.
we're going through this exercise. I'm going through this exercise with my team. They all know about it. We rationalize. Here's the bottom line. Number one, I think one of the number one function of marketing should be pipeline.
Right.
Always. I mean, if you're not obsessed with pipeline, then you shouldn't be in marketing, not in B2B, right? So that should be a number one goal, should be to drive pipeline. When I talk about pipeline, I don't talk about MQLs. That is not pipeline, it's actually demand. I'm
Right.
talking about true S2, S3, S4 numbers. You got to be really held accountable on this equally with your partners in sales. So you have to really focus on the end goal and measure ROI, right? So to me, it's an ROI game. So pipeline is one, LTV to CAC, for those who are into the measures and the KPIs, that's the ultimate measure for me, is lifetime value divided by cost of acquisition. So we all have to start measuring it. I ask my team to measure that all the time. Are we profitable? Are we creating a sustainable and profitable engine of growth for the company? And could we optimize? If it costs too much to run some events, let's talk about it. Is there options to digitize them? Can we do a roadshow instead of doing a big conference? There's always going to be options, but it starts by embracing an ROI mindset, meaning that every dollar in, you gotta have a clear return. If the return is not there, then you need to rethink your marketing mix. So this year in particular, every CMO, I'm sure, is looking at their numbers, and you have to maximize your marketing mix and really drive what works best. And it changes by segments, right? But this year in particular, ROI is really critical.
That makes sense. There's one question from Reagan. Actually, this is a good question. Can you give an overview of a marketing campaign that your team is excited about this quarter? Anything that is coming up that you're excited about on the Amplitude side? Any programs you're doing? Any roadshows and stuff?
Yes, I'm happy to talk about some of those campaigns. We have a lot of campaigns about the topic of consolidation.
Oh, I see.
Consolidation, it's a big one. Kishore, you and I were talking about it. Right? Every company, a lot of companies right now, they're just really thinking about the best way to consolidate their tech stack. So yes, we're running those initiatives, and we see a lot of great traction, obviously, because there's vivid interest among our customers and others. I think what you can correlate closely to that is managing churn. So what we're doing is we're starting to do a lot of topical use case based campaigns that are really designed to help our customers reduce churn, drive higher revenue conversions, for example, lower the cost of acquisitions. Right. These are the kind of conversations we want to have with our customers, not just talk about features, right? The feature is incidental. I think that what customers are trying to solve for is either saving cost or making incremental revenue in a time where you have to be optimized.
Right. So the tech consolidation campaign you mentioned, and that's interesting. Obviously, and everybody's trying to do that. Is it primarily through sort of different channels and getting this, like, hey, here is what Amplitude can do. Here is the sort of tech stack it can consolidate, and is it sort of done through emails, digital ads, and outbound? Is it how the typical campaign works from your end?
It depends. So for this one is more sales-led
Sales.
SDRs because we're
Okay.
really talking to a lot of existing customers. So we're very targeted and we position those topics because we know these topics are really critical for those. We continue to have a topic around efficient growth.
Right.
So this one is also a big topic, and you would have your typical paid ads, organic channels, social ads. These are typical, I would say, channels that we're using. You could have also online events, webinars. We
Right.
are obviously very big on those things. We do a
Right.
lot of these. And to many ways, it also extends to some of the local events that we're doing, right? When we have those topics. Another topic that we're starting to see, and it's specific to our area, is the relationship between product teams and go-to-market teams, right? It's starting to become very clear now that we need to not reconcile, but just create much more bridges
Right.
between both teams. Um, the world of analytics, for example, every single team needs analytics.
Right.
We just use different platforms, we use different tools, and then it creates this sort of need around data, which is extremely difficult for companies to deal with, right? So we're working through those as well.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And then there is one question from Franco, which I'll take. What are the thoughts on this, please? Funnels are not the right metaphor for sales and marketing. Putting more on the top of the funnel is one thing, but actually spending time plugging the leak works far better. Um,
Yes, I agree. I think so. Here's the danger when that's why I don't believe as MQLs as a primary metric. I never use MQLs as a primary metrics. I actually spent 6 months telling my teams, or maybe less, a quarter, that I don't care about MQLs, and they were looking at me with big eyes and said, "What do you mean you don't?" I said, "I care about pipeline conversions." So yes, I agree. Spending time plugging the leaks work great, but you have to work your way back up, right? If you have a conversion issue, why spend more money at the top of the funnel if it doesn't convert? That's wasted money. Even worse, you're actually educating the market for your competitors. Thank you very much. So no, that's not bad. That's not the right way. I think one critical thing is to work both. You have to have a healthy top of funnel and have all of your tactics really well put together. A great web
right.
experience is going to work really well. But if you don't pay attention to your conversion rates, these should be primary KPIs for you, then you're in trouble. Then it means that you're going to start seeing diminishing returns. Doesn't matter if you do paid ads. If it doesn't convert, it doesn't convert. So that's where the challenge comes in, because it's all about relationships. If you have an SDR team who is doing qualification for marketing, you got to work really hard on the relationships, setting up very clear SLAs, really ensuring that the SDR team is really well calibrated. Then SDRs in turn need to work with AEs, right, and just make sure they have joint plans. They can do things like blitzes, pipeline Olympics efforts to just really drive very strong engagement
Right.
all the way down the funnel.
That makes sense. And then the last sort of questions I had to find. One thing I was wondering was, it just becomes very hard to be creative all the time on the marketing team's end, right? Sort of, how do you keep the bar high in your team's outputs as well? Like, how do you make sure that the team's output is sort of high enough, and the team is constantly thinking creatively in terms of how to think out of the box? How do you ensure that sort of culture in your team's
So
yeah.
I have a rule, and maybe I'm French, so it's going to sound maybe a little bit biased, but we got to show up in our best selves as marketers. So I'm really, really particular about look and feel and aesthetics. If I create a newsletter, it's got to be perfect. If I create a deck, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
So the high bar starts with a very strong bias for quality, and the team knows it. but I have to leave it for them. I have to lead by example. So I'm the first one to just really try to show up as polished, as prepared as I can be, because then you set the bar, but you apply it to yourself first. And then if you end up inspiring your team, then it's a great thing. It means that they're going to want to reproduce the same qualities. So leading by example, holding myself accountable to a higher standard is the most important thing for me, because if my team if I want my team to do it, I need to apply it to myself so they know it's possible, right? Then helping them and guiding them. I really believe in the player coach, I would say, mindset. Is It's one thing to direct and tell the team, here is the North Star and where we go. It's another to really help them
Right.
and set them up for success. So I usually come with tons of templates, tons of examples. I want to give them a head start and say, hey,
Right.
I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a little head start, and then you take it away and you
Right.
bring it, you know?
Right. And then different. Do you give feedback? For example, if the team is not doing well, do you give like instant feedback, or do you sort of collect feedback and give to them on
Oh, yeah.
instant feedback? Yeah.
Yeah, so what I like to do also is really focus on recognition. It's
Right.
it's really important. So we have multiple things. I have quality awards. So I've built those since my SAP days, and um, I give credit to another amazing CMO I worked for who taught me how to do it the right way. And I always use the same model. You reward your team on a quality basis. You award the best of the best. Those who work really hard. You award a team who's worked on a really complex cross-functional project that has been really great. You award your MVP, your star performer. You do it a lot. So it's a culture of success. And then you also teach the teams to cheer for each other. You want to be happy if someone, your colleague, just won the award last quarter, and you're just happy for them. So that one is really important. On a monthly basis, I also hold a marketing all hands, and I always have a shout out section, and I encourage the teams to send kudos. So we have Slack channels and things, and I highlight the shout outs, and there's names applied, like aligned to it. There's emojis, there's lots of fun stuff in it. And it's always my favorite part of my call. It's just simple feedback, simple recognition goes a really long way, because sometimes you don't know, people feel more like it's not about, for them, just about the money. It's just a simple word will go a long way to make their day better. And that's what makes you closer to them. You care deeply. You develop some empathy for your people, and them for you. And I think that's really important.
This is such a great point. I actually love this point because we are having the same thing similarly. How do you make sure that the team feels a lot more bought into what you're doing? How can they sort of feel like a team at the end of the day, right? So our head of marketing started this thing on Friday where she's going to give kudos to everyone. Everybody gives kudos to one another just to feel that celebration come in, right, for the work they have done. And that repeated reinforcement along with the right feedback to ensure that they have the right bar, I think will go a long way. Hopefully, this experiment sort of works. But I sort of like the point. I think it's very important to have that sort of culture. And it's very hard to slip by to not have that motion go on. So it's well said.
I had this. I've saw it in myself as well. I evolved a lot as a CMO and as a leader. At the beginning, I was all about results and outcomes, and I was holding myself to such a high standard and was very tough on myself. So it was hard for me to accept failure in others. I don't think that this is how you can actually become an effective leader. You
Right.
get stuck with your own fear of failure, and then it percolates down your org when you do that. Instead, if you flip it and you're like, okay, I'm going to screw up a few times, might as well laugh about it when it happens. But that's when you're like, I need the help of my team.
Right.
And then you start flipping it and empower them to give you advice. They should be better than you. They should be the experts. They should be the people you go to
Correct.
be like, can you give me some advice on this
To do
particular
that, right,
campaign? And I was,
right,
what should we do differently? You know, if you position yourself in that receiving end, being a little bit more vulnerable, it's actually a strength. This is when you start to see incredible
creativity,
success.
bonding, right, right, right.
Yeah, it's bonding, but it's also trust. You build trust
Yeah.
a lot more, and you're into a problem solving or reimagining instead of constantly being in a reactive motion or just being someone who's just controlling a pattern on a dashboard. That shouldn't be the case. It's not fun.
Right. Awesome. But even this is very, very informational, and thanks for taking the time out. Also the last few points you made on team building, I particularly like because we are going through a similar thing right now in terms of how do we build that trust, how do we build that connection between folks. So, very well said points. Just one question, Tiffany, who other CMO would you recommend we should have on the show? Anyone in your network we should reach out and sort of, hey, you know what, she
Oh
would be a
my God,
she would be a great guest. I,
Alicia Tillman.
who's that? Sorry.
Alicia Tillman. So she used to be the CMO of SAP. She's a great mentor of mine. She's incredible. She is working for a company called Capitalis, and she's the
Oh,
best.
she's a CRO. I think that she's a CRO right now, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, she's also CRO and CMO at the same time, and she leads the whole show. Well, here's an incredible story of
So,
a CMO becoming a
yeah.
CRO. Oh my goodness, what an inspiring
Yes.
journey.
That's true. That's true. I like that. Awesome.
Top of my list. Yeah.
Awesome, Tiffany. Tiffany, this is great, and thank you for doing this. Really appreciate your time, and I hope the folks enjoyed as well. If they want to connect with you, I'm assuming that they can sort of talk to you on LinkedIn. That's like the best way to reach out to you, right? But really informational session. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much for having me, Kishore. It was such a great chat, and thank you for the people listening.
Thanks, Tiffany. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.